aspects, the oppositions, is they can be complementary on some level. That's why when you get two people that are opposite signs marrying each other, they kind of support each other, even though they're opposites, okay? What one lacks, the other has, the other, you see what I mean? You see, you get that. But the main thing with a full moon, baby, is that people who are born near the full moon or right around that time could be right, doesn't have to be exactly opposition. Generally have good ability to penetrate into the unconscious. The light of the sun can shine into their unconscious, and they can see while they make good psychologists, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I am.
Uh-huh.
I am full moon. I don't know from the rest, but that's good to know.
Yeah, so it's somebody that has good insights. And so when we say that an opposition is always bad, it's not always bad. It's back to this whole thing that we were talking about earlier, of ruling your stars and ruling these energies and not being a victim. A lot of people like to use astrology to kind of make their excuses, if you would, for the way they are. Can't change, I got this aspect, I got Saturn doing this. One more thing I want to address today, and that is, there's a big, I do transit reports for people because they want them. But I don't necessarily put a lot of stock in them.
Huh. What's a transit report?
Transit report would be where the planets are moving over your chart in the heavens right now. So if I wanted to know where Saturn was in your chart, I'd look at its place. And so a lot of people go to extreme with those interpretations. I don't see them very strong. Saturn maybe is the one planet that I pay a lot of attention to in transit. The rest of them, and maybe Jupiter. But the rest, the fast-moving planets, I don't find that effective.
Those would be progressions.
If you look at your sun sign readings in your newspapers, it's basically trying to use those energies of the transits and what's going on in that particular birth sign. It's very inaccurate stuff. Yeah. The real thing I've learned in astrology is the progressions are more important. The progressions are a year equals a day in the eyes of the Lord. We use one, each day of your life is 1 year of your life, and we move the planets respectively. But that's the only thing I use in that progress chart is the moon. I don't use the rest of the planets, progressed planets. Every astrologer in this country probably is using progressed all energies. But I can, if you have your software now, you can do a progressed chart and interpretation. You can do a transit chart and interpretation. I give everybody a transit chart when they come for a reading. I give it to them. I don't necessarily buy into it, but people want it, so I give it to them.
I'm sorry, Ron, what's the difference between transit and progression?
Progressions are a day equals a year in the eyes of the Lord in Scripture. So what we do, if let's say you're 10 years old and you're born on August the 1st, then I'm going to go to August the 11th and do a chart. Or put those planets' movements into that chart. So the only thing I said I use is the moon. The moon moves at about 12 degrees a day. So if you're born, there's one thing I want to show you about one thing that I found that's real accurate. And if you have a moon square or opposition to Saturn in your chart, how many in here do have that aspect? Anybody?
Do what? Sorry?
Moon square or the moon opposition to Saturn.
I see
Saturn?
No.
Who's got that? Anybody? Okay, 1, 2, 3. 3 of you? Anybody else?
No.
This is going to be important for you to know this. Okay, what I'm going to show you. If you're born with a moon at the time of your birth, the moon is making a square or an opposition to your Saturn, then you need to know that you've got something in your chart that's going to occur regularly. It's called the moon chasing Saturn, or Saturn chasing the moon, whatever. The reason is this.
What are your orbs on an opposition?
What is the difference?
Yes, my son's square.
Well, because if they're wider, I may have an opposition.
What is the, give me the degrees.
The degrees for my Saturn are 5 in Virgo.
5 Virgo.
My moon is 23 in Pisces.
So you're not square then?
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Virgo?
Never mind. It's too far. It's not the other way. No, I don't.
You don't have. Okay, good.
I thought you had.
All right.
I have
What happens
a
is,
Mercury square.
let's say you have moon square Saturn when you're born, or opposing, could be opposing. Both of these remember I talked about progressions? The progressed moon is, it moves roughly, every day is about 12 degrees a day. 12, it can be 11, 12, 13, 14 degrees a day. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes slower, but its average mean motion is about 12 degrees a day. So let's say we just took the example I gave you. You're born, let's say July 1st, and you, I want to know 20 years from now what your progressions are. So I do a chart for 20 days from there. Okay, the software does this for you, so you don't have to know how to do it. All you have to do is put a progress chart, you know, right? So only thing I pull out of that information is not all those planets' progressions. I don't. I only pull one thing out of it, the progressed moon. And the progressed moon, if it moves roughly, it takes 28 years to go full cycle through your chart as a progression. 28 years. Now, Saturn's transit position, where it is right now in the sky, also has a 28, 29-year cycle. Okay? So, what that means is that the transit Saturn and the progressed moon are basically moving the same amount all the time. They're called progressed moon chasing transit Saturn. It means that they're constantly staying square in opposition your whole life. Okay? Which can be challenging because you're dealing with a planet's energies that are very impacting in your life, very much so. So it's called Saturn chasing the moon, or the moon chasing Saturn, and that's because the progressed moon takes 28 years to go through the chart. If it's now you getting it? I heard it. Oh,
Yeah, because of the Saturn return.
good for you. So it takes 28 years for this to move, right?
Right.
Right. Okay.
Oh wow.
Now you're getting it. Okay. Now, if it's not clear, we'll work on this, understanding this, because it's important.
But that would be any aspect of the Saturn to the moon.
Huh?
Any actual aspect of the Saturn or the moon. What you're saying is going to reoccur every. Wow.
Every 28 years.
No, continually because the one's going to move a degree and the other one's going to move a degree.
So
Good for
it
you.
stays that way.
It's a continuous work.
They stay, yeah, it's not
So,
an easy
but
aspect.
that's huge. That's your mother and your father.
Yeah, not only that, it's your emotional state,
Yeah.
it's your,
Thank God I don't have that.
it can be your career, Saturn can be career, you had something?
Yeah, I was wondering,
What does that mean?
And I gave birth when I was 28.
on a birth chart,
So, and it's symbolic.
What's that?
Oh, you're opposite. They're opposite.
Always gonna be
Are
there.
they an aspect?
Yeah, because it's more crucifying, okay? So,
Yes,
she's
but are they
Christina.
aspected? Because just because they're opposite. Give me the beginning.
Okay, Christina made a good point. She said, does that mean, what did you say?
does it mean that at your Saturn return, if you have the moon squaring Saturn on your birth chart, it's going to be worse
It's going to be
than
worse.
for everybody else?
Exactly, good.
But
Now, we
this-
say worse, we're back to lessons and
Double
learning.
whammy.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
means
Right.
this is a
I got
real.
it.
I have
This is
it
really
too.
karmic.
Real what?
Karmic. This is
Yeah,
huge.
good for you. And because Saturn is very karmic. Also, the thing, when we're dealing with, when I do want to know what's going on in your chart, and I want to know what the future's looking like, there's only three things I look at. I look at the progressed moon, which has a 28-day year cycle. Saturn has a 28-year cycle of going around the chart. So this is transit Saturn now. Remember, this is transit, this is progression. Progression is a day equals a year in the eyes of the Lord. In other words, if you were going to look at here's what I want to bring it to. I want to bring it to one thing. This is a person that tends to have 7-year crises every 7 years. Because if there's 28 years in this cycle, here comes Zeus. Look, he's going to break up the fight. You heard the gas hissing.
That's what she does?
You
See
go
him?
back. Yeah, you go back, you wet.
That's cute.
You're very wet.
He's become a real...
Boy, go. Good boy. Let's go back.
That's so funny.
He opened that window
No
back here.
shaking here. Let's
Yeah.
go. Good boy.
Okay. So, So
they're both a 28-year cycle.
here's something you can get and put in your book and bank on it. You can, anybody has that aspect, you can pretty much bank that every, roughly 7 years, can be off a little bit. 1 year side either way pretty much, because the speeds can change a little bit of the moon. But you can bet on it that every 7, 14, 28, 36, 35, right?
Why every 7 years and why not every year?
No, because that's being triggered every 7 years
Oh, okay.
as it moves through. Because here it's going to hit this point here. Here it's going to first progress moon, bam, then here, then here. Those are 7 years. It puts it back on
I
the
have
crossing.
Jupiter, so I resurrect.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And
that's what the triangle.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Have you've heard people talk about
Divided by 4, of course, in 7 years.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So if you see it in a chart instantly, you can say, oh, this person, I bet something major happened at 7 years old roughly, and 14, and 21. And you know, you find out, a lot of people don't have memory for bad things.
Yeah.
That's another thing you'll find out when you go to charts. We have a sort of safety net in our mind that, what, he's fine, please let him lay down. Lay down, he's fine. Good, okay, good, that's good. So when you see a chart with this, you can generally make pretty good estimation of cycles in their life. And I found this to be true. I mean, it'd be, instead of 21, they said, yeah, but I was divorced at 22. I married at 18, but I got divorced at, so it's 1 year. It's 1 year off one way. But it's close. You're going to find roughly in that area. So you can pretty much, yes, honey.
Okay, this is square or oppositions, right?
Yeah.
What about trines?
No, it doesn't, no, it's not about that. Okay. So it's only this, okay? Now, because I shouldn't have said it's not about that. There's something there, but let's not go there now, because it'd be a little complex. But let's stay with it. So the other thing is what I discovered by accident. Because I never was big on transit Saturn. I'd always be around astrology and astrologers, and they would say, oh my God, I got Saturn going over my ascendant, or Saturn's going to do this. And they'd start bemoaning the fact that Saturn's transiting something richer. And then nothing would ever happen, of course, but then they were sure fearful it was. Saturn's good at giving you fear. So what happens is, I used to kind of reject Saturn's transit. But when I was teaching in Boston, I had a class there, and I had a revelation. And it was basically on this. This is a 28-year cycle. This is a 28-year cycle. And my other thing I use is the new moons, which are a 28-day cycle. 28, 29, right? It's right in there. So I began to understand. I said, it's amazing. 28, 28, and new moons are 28. So the new moons happen every month, the new moons. And let's just say that this was in Aries, and this was in Capricorn, and the new moon fell, and let's say it was, let's give it a 10-degree aspect. Let's say it's at 10 degrees in the chart. You see it's 10 degrees and it's square, the perfect square. And you know that roughly every 7 years there's going to be a crisis, but you're doing their chart right now and you're curious about what the year ahead looks like. You say, I wonder when this is all going to add up to be an aspect that's going to have some impact on their life. The new moons happen every month. So let's say that it's March and you're looking at the progressed moons. I mean the new moon's right there. And the new moon falls, let's just assume in March in Aries, it falls at 10 degrees of Aries, the new moon.
And that's going to be a real important.
There you go. New moon. Okay, let's say it's at 10 degrees Aries too, or 12 or 15 right in that area. What are you going to see? You're saying, wow, she's got 3 things going on, or he's got 3 things going on all at once. The new moon, the progressed moon, and transit Saturn, all hitting. I have been doing charts. Let me tell you, when I discovered this, I went back and I started looking at all the charts that I had. I started doing charts of my students that bring me, their uncle died on such and such a day, and we do the chart, and I'd say, let's put this all in there, and let's see what happens. Guess what? Every time, all these things getting depth to create a death, or some major crisis. My heart attack, when I had my heart attack, I didn't do the chart till after I had it, and I had all the same things. Everything compiled, added up, to create that aspect of extraordinary crisis in my life.
Why didn't you moon and not the full moon?
Why what?
Why the new moon? Because it's beginning a cycle. Why the new moon and not the full moon?
You know, as Scripture says, let no man judge in neither meat nor drink or the Sabbaths or of the new moons, which are a shadow of things to come.
Because it's the beginning of a cycle.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I've seen it over and over. I have a lecture, I have to pull it out somewhere, I've got it, that I did for an astrological association in California about this. And I showed chart after chart after chart. John F. Kennedy's assassination. Everything lined up for his death. Everything. I mean, of these, only using these factors. I had my students, you know, would bring me their chart of the daughter and what happened. They would give me just say, draw a chart for this date. And I would draw the chart and say, oh my God, this child was injured very badly. What happened at this particular time? And yeah, her father beat her half to death. You know what I mean? Things like that. And I would see it over and over again. Every time it was so accurate, it scared me. So I wrote a little thesis, and I wrote a kind of little small book, which I put together called the Cosmic
Key.
Called Cosmic Key to Prophecy. Astrologers would die for it if they could get a hold of it. I mean, I don't know why I haven't published it or done something with it.
That's because of that aspect you mentioned earlier. But you need to. Today, like tonight.
Yeah.
I'll make sure you do it.
But see,
really has to
I mean,
be
I've gotten
such
a
a
lot to
discussion.
give to the community of astrologers in this world. But, you know, they're all set on their ways, most of them know, you know, there's a jealous community out there of
Yeah.
astrologers.
There is.
They're very petty, and I shouldn't collectivize everything, but very often you find them very jealous and possessive of their particular
It's
stuff,
hard to
you know?
find a group too.
They're not always
Let's just
open.
start one.
California was a little different. I found Californian, I used to do a lot of lecturing for different astrological community groups, and they were very receptive and open. And Boston was the opposite. Very possessive of their clients and their people, and they didn't want anybody to come in and give them anything that, you know, would take them away. I had a bunch of students form from one lecture I gave to the AFA, I mean not the AFA, what is it, Cosmic Research in NCGR? I gave a lecture on New Year's. They asked me to come and give one on New Year's on the prophecies of the year. And I had a huge group of students come to my class. They were so upset with me because I had formed a class out of their group, and one of the dates of the classes interfered with their group, and they were very mad. But, you know, I just backed out of all that. But this is the key. If you can learn this is a advanced class to learn how to prophesy. We can't do all that in one class, in this one group. But this is so important, progressions. You have the software, you should get it if you don't. Get the software. You guys get it on sale now. You know their phone number and address, how to get in touch
Yeah,
with them?
we have it.
Okay.
And you know what to do if, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you call them.
You can call them, and I never get them to call me back. Don't know why.
What's the
But
phone
they just never
number
call me
again?
back. Whatever number's on the
On the website.
On the website.
That's
You
the
have
one
it
I
on our
use.
website, right?
So I would leave a message, and I never get a response from them. So then finally I decided, well, I'm just going to email them, and I did that, and I got a response like in about a day or so.
You know, tell them also, give them, just say Ron Watson sent me.
Yeah.
They know me
Sure.
personally. I've been out to dinner with them.
Okay.
I've been to their place. They know me. You know, they're good people, but they're busy.
Well, but you don't know who's, you know, like, they probably have change,
Yeah,
you know, of shift in, you know.
that's right, yeah.
So they might not know who you are,
Yeah,
but you can say that, you can mention his name and, you know, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Okay.
But just tell them, say, I was out of town, I went on my site, I was reading, you know, the, what's new for September. What's it?
Mhm.
Okay,
yeah.
Whatever the newsletter is.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's where it was.
okay,
And
thank
just,
you.
we want the special, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll give it
Just-
to you.
and yeah.
They'll give it to you. But, you know, this is important that you get the software. And
Yeah,
if you
it's-
need help on how to operate it or run it, you know, come on by and I'll sit down with you at the computer and show you what
I
it
might
is.
do that.
Yeah, for sure, you know. That's what it's all about, learning. So the thing is, you can all do progressions. So you do a progress chart, you go home, you do a progression, and just pull the moon's position, whatever it says, 28 degrees something, and whatever, write it down. Put it outside the globe, your chart, just write it in there. Then look at transits, through transits, and then just pull Saturn out.
Mhm.
Put Saturn outside the chart. Remember, Saturn was the timekeeper.
Right.
That's what got me when I saw that. I said, no wonder nobody gets any aspects, energies, or nothing happening with Saturn, because they're not putting it in together with these other two things, which are the 28 cycles. So I realized when I did that, I said, my God, you know, I'm on to something magical here. I really was. And I used to do a lot of work, astrology readings on the air and readings, and I was pretty accurate. There was always a degree there. I knew I could be sharper, and I didn't know what it was missing. And then when I found this, I said, oh, look at how, this is amazing. All right, so again, the timekeeper is Saturn. Remember that, that's what it's about.
Well, if you don't have the true time, can you still do the progressed moon and look, or
That's going to be
right
hard.
off?
It's going to be harder.
Okay.
You're going to not be able to get as much accuracy from a chart that's not got a time.
Okay.
And, you know, if you have the Saturn-Moon aspect in that chart, the Moon moves about 12 degrees a day. If it's sitting right close to exact square or opposition, let's say it's 15 and 15, or let's say it's 20 and 15 in a chart you're not sure about. If you think 24 hours, that Moon can move, well, how many degrees? 12 degrees? So if it's so close that you know that in 12 degrees it's not likely going to be out of aspect to that Moon Saturn, it's still going to be square. And you know you've got a Moon chasing Saturn. You've probably got a 7-year cycle of crises in that chart.
When you do the progressions, how far ahead do you go? It depends on the person.
Anytime I want to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in other
Like-
words, if I came in to see you and I said, can you do a progressed chart, what
Yeah.
exactly would you do?
Yeah, I would do from now to whenever you wanted.
Okay, so I would be the one to tell you, I want it
Yeah.
for 6 months from now.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then you would progress it.
Yeah, you have a chart reading coming from this class.
Yeah.
And you do too, and
Uh-huh.
you do. You?
I had a private reading with you, but I thought maybe we do a chart compatibility. Is that
Anything you
all right?
want, yeah, that's right, no
Okay,
problem.
thanks.
Okay, so those of you who came before, I told you I'd do that. The other side of it is that this, when we do that, I can take you through and show you some of this stuff on the computer.
Okay.
Hopefully,
great.
I would recommend if you have a laptop, do
Yeah.
you have a Mac or a PC?
PC.
Because they have
Mac.
software for both.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. So what I would suggest is in the interim before I do your reading, get that software sent in. And then when you come for your reading, bring the laptop.
Okay.
And that way I can work with you and show you how to use it and make sure
Okay.
you understand everything. So that'd be part of the time I spend with you, okay? All right.
When you install your,
all right. Okay.
Saturn moves 12 degrees, just like
you
the
might have a
moon.
problem
Moves what, honey?
opening
12
up
degrees a
your
day.
computer.
No.
No, not a day, a year.
Okay.
A year.
Thanks.
Or not even 12 degrees.
It moves
a year.
28, it takes 28 years to cycle 360 degrees. Now, there's a challenge with Saturn. Saturn goes retrograde, goes direct.
What does that mean?
It means by our appearance from the Earth's viewpoint, it seems to be going backwards. Okay, but it's not really, but it's just because of the movement of the,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
shifting of
The
everything.
way it looks.
So,
Right.
so retrograde, you know, I've seen a lot of things about retrogrades, everything that's very karmic. Mercury retrograde, they say don't start things when Mercury's retrograde in the heavens right now if it's retrograde. It's not a good time to begin something. And wait till it goes direct, for example. Then there's something else that people say. When the moon is void of course, means it's not making any aspects, anything. It's not a good time to start things. I don't buy into all that. I've been at conferences where I've been asked to set up something, do something. And somebody will say in the group in astrology, you don't want to do it now, it's void of course moon. I said, well, I'm going to do it anyway, and it's going to work. And it works because I put my energy, put my will into
The
it.
fool
okay?
obeys the plan as the wise man heeds. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you heed, but you don't obey,
Yeah.
right?
If I'm strong about something, feel strong
Yeah.
about something, I'm going to do it. I think will is ever the ruler. Okay,
Uh-huh.
I believe that. So we have to not let astrology really, Bethany, you made a good point in this, and she brought up a good subject for me. Go to my website, My Gift for You,
It's Facebook.
Facebook.
Just go Facebook Aquarian Awakening.
What's it called?
Aquarian Awakening.
Aquarian Awakening. Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah, and I post things every now and then, and this is good to read what Kathleen and I exchanged, because it was so good that I told Elena, so we should post this on the website because it's good for everybody to read. Because I'm a fan of Edward Casey. He was an amazing sleeping prophet, he called him. And I've seen amazing things with his work. And he helped me understand astrology. For example, he said many things. He said Pluto is the planet of Christ consciousness. I never saw that anywhere else but from Casey. And I find that to be true. Okay? I have, for example, a grand trine with my Pluto, Sun, and Jupiter. Jupiter is the teacher, the prophet, Zeus, and Jesus, okay? But it's grand trine to Pluto, the resurrected one, okay? Pluto is the planet of resurrection from the dead itself. So, and I think that, you know, there's so much in Casey's writings about astrology that enhances our own sense of knowledge about it. But Kathleen sends me beautiful, sometimes things, she challenges me. You know? She sends me little challenges, like tit for tat, you know, I got to get her back for this one, you know. she hit on a good note with me because Casey I love, you know, and I know Casey's work, so I was able to send back to her, which is on the site. When you go there, you'll see it. My response to her thing about that, you know. Anyway, because, you know, sure, will is ever the ruler, but how many people are able to exercise their
Tell
will?
us a story about Lila Sherman, who knew Casey personally. She was in her 90s. Remember when we met her in California? It was a beautiful woman.
Tell us
No,
about it.
you
Tell us about it.
I'm too close to the
I
camera.
did a
My
Casey
voice is
reading. There used to be a program. It's still available on PC. I highly recommend it if you can get it. Since I don't use PCs anymore, I can't get it. They never made an Apple version for it, a Mac version of it. But it's astrological interpretations based upon Edward Casey's work, and it gives your past lives, everything in it. And I'm trying to recall what in the reading it talked about. In the past life, she was a man, and it was talked about her adjustment into this life would be very difficult because she'd been a man before. And she was going to be, and she had a girlfriend at 90 years old. They'd been together for years, you know, and lovers. But she started out. She was in New York. She was an exquisitely beautiful woman. I mean, beyond beautiful. She was. She was so beautiful. Artists and photographers would come in and try to take her pictures and stuff. She had the first metaphysical bookstore in New York, a big one too. And she was from a very wealthy family in. I think Staten Island or someplace.
Long Beach.
No. Not California, New York.
Long Island.
Long Island, okay. But she's from a very well-to-do family. And the point being that she became a dear friend of ours. She was a sculptress. She sculptured the Pope. That's how good she was. Amazing, talented woman. So anyway, I gave her this reading and she was freaked out because she had actually went to Casey in Virginia Beach in the 40s, or whatever years it was, early when he was still around, and had a personal reading by him, and he told her the same thing, you know, that, you know, you were a man in the past life, and you're going to have, you know, some challenges because every relationship you have with another man is never going to go past a friendship. If it gets into a friendship, it'll be fine, but if it ever gets into more, you're going to find it causes a lot of pain. You're not going to stay in it. And that's what happened to her. But that's not the sadness, the whole story. Soon, now, I saw photos of her and paintings of her that she showed us when she was a young woman. Exquisitely beautiful. So beautiful it's beyond description. One of the most beautiful women you've ever seen in your life. That's how beautiful. But she started growing a mustache and a beard. Guess what? Her past life, yeah. She started growing a mustache and a beard. And you know, this is not the days of laser.
Yeah.
You know, I'll go take care of it, right? This is back in the and so of course it became a very big challenge for her. Here's a woman with exquisite beauty, all of a sudden a beard and a mustache.
Wow.
And so she also had the same experiences as Casey had predicted, that every man she was with.
And she was shaving. She was taking care of herself. She was very well groomed. You would never think or assume anything. She would shave every day.
You can't hide that.
Even in the 90s, she would call her. She said, "Before you come, please call me," because she was in impaired vision, right? She couldn't see. But she said, I have to shave before
Yeah.
you come,
Yeah.
because she was our close friend, you know, she was
She
very
never
open.
had this, the laser
Yeah.
stuff. But that's an interesting thing, and that let me just tell you this had a big bearing on my understanding and my concept of so-called gay life. It changed my perspective considerably because, you know, when I was in prison, I was like really anti stuff. Because I mean, being a young white guy in prison was not easy. I mean, I was a good-looking kid, but that's made me into a fighter because
You
I'm just
still
not,
are.
you know, I'm just not into that.
That's so sweet.
Well, I mean,
You still are a good-looking
does this sound
kid.
tape?
Yes.
But I had no tolerance for it because I was not gay, you know. But it changed my perspective a lot. All of a sudden, I began to realize that, you know, when we come into this life, who knows what I mean, what we were in our past life, you know?
And it happens in high schools now. Remember, I had
Yeah.
students that were cross-dressers, and they looked like girls. They were boys with nails and everything.
Yeah.
And they talked differently, and they were
Yeah.
beautiful students.
Exactly.
Very brave to walk into high school wearing a skirt and heels, you know, and be
Yeah.
yourself. I admired
Yeah.
it. I learned how to admire it.
Yeah. So these things, you know, I think that one thing that the smarter we get and more educated we get, the more tolerant we become of life, and we begin to see things with different perspective. This changed my perspective a lot in life. It made me think different about things. It made me realize that, you know, we are not always who we are because of where we're born right now, or where we've been before. What is our past life? What have we experienced in past lives? If you got a PC, you do, you know,
Yeah.
get Casey's work. Go online and try to find it.
Okay.
I wish I had it.
Very
I love those
Yeah,
reports.
I love that.
Fascinating.
It was
It is.
fascinating.
Can I ask you something that's totally off the subject?
Yeah.
Have you by any chance looked at Obama's birth chart versus Romney's?
Yeah, actually I have. You know, let me tell you something. First of all, I have a hard time with the political stuff because I think there's so much hatred and ugliness out there
Yeah,
regarding. But let me answer
yeah.
you. Okay.
But the thing
I did Romney's chart,
Okay,
okay, and I posted it on my site.
okay.
It's not there now. I took it off,
Oh.
and I highly liked it. It was one of the best charts I've ever seen.
Did you do Obama's chart?
Yeah, a long time ago, but his chart, this guy's chart is just
But
phenomenal.
Romney's has got all these trines. All these,
Romney's, yeah. he
Yeah.
does. Good chart, very powerful, and a very positive chart. But and I was getting drawn into it because I have friends that are really adamant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One way or the
That's
other.
right,
Yeah,
we're
everybody seems to be one way or
angry
the
people
other.
that are just,
We just don't talk politics anymore.
No.
you and I both.
You know, you just keep.
Yay.
Yeah, Elena's like that, and we've lost a friend over this kind of stuff, basically,
Yeah.
because, you know, they're ready to go to war, you know?
And it
Okay,
was-
but the reason I asked, because when I looked at Romney's chart, it just went, oh my God. It was such, like you said, such a positive chart.
Oh, it's
such a-
amazing, yeah.
So many trines. I've never
Well,
seen so
I
many
know,
trines
and
in a
I
chart.
wrote a thing on my blogs, on my site, Point Awakening site.
No,
my
it
gift
was
for
on
you.
your personal site.
My gift for you.
What
No, no, it was on your
Life that man has
Facebook.
had.
Doesn't
Ron
matter.
Watson. Ron Watson.
Okay, anyway, I wrote a thing, I put his chart on there. I wrote a thing about how beautiful it was, and he was a great man, and all this stuff. And I took it off a couple days ago because I said, you know, I just don't want to get involved in this.
Right, and you
I
know
don't-
you will.
Yeah, I don't want to,
Send it to me, I'd love to share it with some friends.
I can do that, you know.
Would you send it to me?
You know what, yeah.
Send it to
I
all
don't know
of us.
how many people's emails I have, you know?
It's actually,
Are you on Facebook?
Why don't I have a better idea?
I'm
Why don't
on
I,
Facebook, but I don't know how to use it.
I have a better
I'll do it
idea.
now.
why don't I,
I would
before
just
you all
leave it
leave,
there.
I'll give you his chart, I'll print it for you.
Okay,
I want
that
your interpretation though.
You don't want it.
I would like to hear your interpretation.
who's given
I don't even need
Obama
No way, huh? Okay, if you want it, stay and I'll get it for
I would
you.
like it.
Yeah, I would love
All
it.
right.
Be cool.
Well, we're having too much
Well,
fun
you
and
can send
getting
it,
off
yeah,
course.
save paper, save a tree. Just email it to me.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
save a tree.
All right, all right. Okay. Now, I don't want to get too distracted here because I tend to go on tangents. Any questions about anything, about astrology? Any specific questions? All right. Let's, so we understand moon chasing Saturn or Saturn chasing moon. All right, good.
That's interesting.
It is.
I would like to see one.
In advanced classes, what I do is I
You
teach
can
this
also find it
technique,
online.
and I would give everybody
If
the
you put up, you'll
book
see
that
it
I
online.
told you I would never publish.
Oh,
It's a treasure, believe me, but that would be part of the course. But right now, I want to keep you focused on interpreting charts and understanding them, and so that you really can clearly start to read charts, okay? One of the things that often happens when you start looking at a chart is like, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I even begin to do it? It looks like, here, it's just overwhelming, right? Okay, so there's a couple things you should look at. Most importantly are these major planets, okay? Obviously, the Moon, Sun, okay, Mars, Venus. I want you to focus on this, and again, Jupiter, okay? Now, more than Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. I want these to be your focus. Initially, as you're starting out.
Not Saturn?
And Saturn, didn't I put Saturn out there? Okay. So those are the key things you're going to look at. Now, get me, when you're looking at the charts, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to look at which charts are, which planets rather, are hitting the hardest angles. Meaning here, here, and here. Now, if you see Saturn, and Saturn particularly, strong on these points, any one of those 3 points, you tend to have somebody that has a good mind for science, math, it's not 100%, but generally that's the case. That's got a good inclination towards those things. Because what is Father Time? Measured off of all things, remember that? Saturn is the timekeeper, the measure of, divider of time and space. People that have this kind of energy and strong aspects are generally very analytical and very good at taking things apart and seeing the parts. Jupiter is the opposite. Jupiter is the ability to see the whole. Jupiter is holy, right? Jesus, Jesus, holy. Saturn is the divide and conquer. So if this is the emphasis in the chart, you'll tend to get somebody that's good with numbers, good with math, good with things that have to do with science, the doctors, the surgeons.
No, I'm Neptune.
There's some pizza.
I'm Neptune.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You have nothing to do with math or stuff.
Come on in, come on in. Come on in.
Is everything okay? I can come in.
Oh, he's fine.
Look at strange animals that bring food. Oh. Where do you want me to put it down on the table?
Yeah,
over here?
the table there.
Oh, all right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks
Put it in the middle of the table.
All right.
3250. Hi,
Catherine, you know?
Hey Joe, how are you?
Not bad. How about yourself? Where are you? There you are. Okay, the sun's in my. How you doing today?
Yeah, that's been
Jupiter,
Yeah, I just got in, so not really.
Take care.
Yeah, Jupiter and Capricorn, but in the 11th house.
How close do they have to be the planets?
Sag.
Just at their most elevated in the chart.
So
If
So
they,
it
you know,
says 8
Oh, okay.
degrees, that's close.
So, but
Huh?
I have
Too far.
the moon and Neptune at the.
Yeah, that's good. That's, yeah, it is. And Mars is also up
Okay.
there high.
So,
You good with math and figures?
oh, okay.
See, that tells me right away there's strong
Oh,
inclination
right.
towards those things.
That's good.
So it's quick look.
Are you?
Let's take a break since we've
I
got
am
pizza
learning.
here
I'm
and
getting
come
better.
back to
It's
this.
also could be medical, it says.
And,
Medical,
oops, gentlemen's there.
Yeah?
Yeah.